Welcome to Rock and Roll Confessional.
I'm Rita Wild.
I'm CW West. How was the Super Bowl? Was it as exciting as it was meant to be?
Nope, not at all.
Really? Did the red team win?
They both were wearing red, so it was a safe bet.
So you doubled your money?
I don't think I won anything.
Oh.
So
an office pool?
There was one office pool.
You and the cats?
And then another one. But I haven't checked my numbers on the other one. So I'm just waiting, like for the super lottery, when they call my numbers, and if I have those numbers, or they said that the winning ticket was one in the city that I purchased one in, then my ears perk up.
Is that the super lotto that like anybody in any state can play?
Yeah. The last one that was like $1 billion. Did you play that one?
No, I don't play any of them because I figure, you know what? You can't lose if you don't play.
Yeah, but you can't win if you don't play either.
Yeah,
I could have been
I'm winning.
billionaire.
I'm winning every day I don't play.
This episode is with studio and touring bassist Leland Sklar, one of my all-time favorite people. Leland has worked with over 2,600 bands and played on over 30,000 songs. In 2004, Phil Collins hired him for the farewell tour. Lee brought his camera, and that is where it all started. He started taking pictures of birds, and we don't mean the ones from the Audubon Society.
Now, 16 years later, with over 12,000 photos from everyone he has run into, he has a new book titled Everyone Loves Me. The book will make you smile as well as this episode. Lee talks not only about making the book, but touring with Phil Collins, Toto, and his YouTube channel that he's been posting every day since March 2020.
One of the all-time greats, Leland Sklar.
How are you? Long time no see.
Well, yeah.
When I went to pick up the books, Leland was out walking his dogs and he didn't have his mask. So he goes, hold on, I got to run and get my mask. And he runs inside and he comes out. And I'm not really paying attention to him or anything. And we're talking about the book. And then he looks up and he has this mask, which is like another pair of lips on it. And it just was one of those things that like threw me back. Like I was like, holy shit.
It's creepy. It's so creepy. Every time I go into like the supermarket or anything, people come running up and go, you have to wear a mask in here. Yeah, they tell me I have to wear a mask.
I want to get a mask, which was basically like you had, but I want like the butt of a rat with the tail coming out of it.
I think you've got something there.
That's great. Well, I know your time is precious.
No, it's nothing. It's all about you guys.
We didn't put this fabulous book together. Are you kidding me?
My God, what an incredible book.
The hard part of that is I still have over 6,000 photographs I didn't use.
Well, it's part 2 then.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I could survive another one. This has been definitely, because I did everything myself on this, so it's been a tough one.
Now, it's beautiful. The quality of it is excellent. The photography.
Just for the record, it's called Everybody Loves Me by Leland Sklar.
Are we on the air?
Sure, I'm just recording.
I just need to know when to choke up and then get nervous.
Oh, can you wait about 45 minutes for that?
Sure. Okay, now we can go.
Take 2.
Okay.
So it's Everybody Loves Me. It's by Leland Sklar. It's a beautiful read. And you can talk about it, Leland, but I want to make sure you don't blow the end of the book. I mean, let's not give away the end of the story here.
Okay.
Talk to us about how this all began.
When I was on the road with Phil Collins in 2004, we were doing the first final farewell tour. And it was a long, arduous tour, which is my favorite kind of tours. But there was talk during the course of the tour that when the tour ended, Phil was probably going to call it quits and retire. He was in the middle of doing Tarzan on Broadway, and we actually had to lose 2 legs of the tour because of that, because the producers of the show wanted Phil to be back there for the rehearsals, which ultimately was completely unnecessary. But we were supposed to do Southeast Asia and Africa, and those got put off. And I think by the time all this stuff ended, I think Phil was just kind of weary. So I knew that there was a chance this was going to happen. And we had an enormous entourage on the road. It was a big tour. So there was, with band and crew, there's probably 100 people out there on the road together. And I thought I may not see a lot of these people again because they're from Europe. They're different parts of the States. I mean, the crew is kind of an international crew. So I thought about it, and I thought, I'm going to just take a picture of everybody and put together a little memory book in my computer of, just so as long as I still have a memory, I could go back and visit it and not be sure what I'm looking at. I had a bass tech on the tour, a guy named Steve Winstead, but his nickname was Chinner. And actually in the book, in the first introductory page, he's the first picture in it, showing the first picture I took. And when it got to the end of the tour and I started taking these pictures, the first guy I went to was Chinner. And he was sitting at his laptop working. And I went over and I said, hey, Chinner, give me a smile. And he just kind of didn't even look up. And he just went, we had a good relationship. And that is not indicative of anything other than love between us.
For those that are listening, he gave you the finger.
Oh, this isn't video. This is all audio, isn't it?
Mostly audio, yeah.
Well, in this way, also, people don't have to think about the fact that we're all naked talking together right now.
Well, we are. I mean,
use your imagination.
Waist down.
Don't worry, I won't stand. Okay, so Chinner flips me off, gives me the finger, and I looked at the picture and I went, man, this is actually pretty cool. So I got everybody in the band. I got Phil. I got the management team, Tony Smith, his manager. I got all the crew, bus drivers, caterers, everybody. I ended up with about 125 pictures. And I put it away at the end of the tour like I intended to. It just turned out different than I intended it to be. Then a couple of years after that, I went on the road with Toto. And I thought, that worked kind of good with Phil. Let's do some shot. And, of course, they were thrilled to do it. And so I took them. And by that point, it got up to about a few hundred pictures. And it started to take on a life of its own. And like I did the Mark and Brian Christmas show at, the Microsoft Theater, whatever it was called. I forget what it was called back then. But I got the entire audience to flip me off. But it's gone on and on and on. And at this point, I have over 12,000 photographs of people flipping me off from every walk of life. From the man on the street, from winos that I find laying in cardboard boxes. The only thing I don't have in the book, and it was absolutely intentional, there is not one politician in the book. I refuse to cross that line. And we had some great opportunities when we were doing the James Taylor Carole King Troubadour tour. When we played in Washington, I looked down in the front row and there was Hillary and Nancy Pelosi and John Kerry, and they were all backstage hanging out. And I thought, this would be so easy, but I didn't want it to be one-sided because people would start ragging on me, where's the right and, all that. So it was easier just to avoid that kind of a tar pit that you could fall into with that. And it was one of these things, I just had all these pictures, and really people kept saying over the years, you ever going to do a book, man? You ever going to do a book? And needless to say, I was always busy. And the idea of doing a book really never entered my mind. I mean, it was kind of a thought that would be fun, but things were busy. And then all of a sudden, this past year, pandemic hit, all the work disappeared, like for almost every musician I know. And suddenly your calendar was wiped clean. And there's a painter, an artist here in Pasadena named Kenton Nelson, who's a fantastic, he's world renowned. He's got stuff in galleries all over the world. And he has these get-togethers every once in a while, except, of course, for this year, this past year, where he gets about a dozen or so people he finds interesting over and has like a barbecue in his backyard. And we just sit and hang out all evening and talk and gather. And at one of these, he and Van Dyke Parks are friends, and Van Dyke called me up and asked me if I'd be his date. So I went because I was a big fan of Kenton and I'd never met him. So it was great to go there. And then I got hooked up with him, became a regular at these get-togethers. Well, one of the ones I went to, there was a guy named Richard Tremarky, I think is how he pronounces his last name. His nickname is Blue, and that's how I know him, is Blue. And he has a company, Fine Art Publishing is the name of it. But his company's called Artworks, he was at this party, and we started talking, and he found the whole concept fascinating and said, let's do it. Let's just do the book. And that's what he does. I mean, he does all kinds of fine artwork. He's done a lot of books for people. And so I loaded all the pictures into an external drive and gave it to him. And he spent a whole bunch of time just sitting, going through pictures, and then put together what he thought was interesting stuff. Then I went through it and got rid of some and added ones I thought needed to be there and all that. And we honed it down from 12,000 pictures to 6,000, which is what's in the book.
Wow. There's 6,000 in here.
Yeah. And he's been absolutely instrumental in putting this together. He's the one that said to me, you want to do a padded cover? He showed me one of the books he had done that had a padded. And I said, let's make this as good a book as we can. Use the best quality paper. We went through every page and just made sure everything was lined up, that there wasn't anything off kilter and anything that needed to be bumped up in resolution and things like that. So I really owe so much of this book to Blue, because he was really, really instrumental in actually making this happen. And then the harsh reality came in. First off, the bill for because I printed 10,000 of these.
Okay.
So I dove in real deep on this, and then there's a lock-in store here in Pasadena, and I've got a massive room stacked to the ceiling with books. But they've been going. It's been going really good. There's a publisher out of Colorado that bought 1,000, and they're distributing. And I'm talking to people in Japan and looking for fulfillment centers in Europe and stuff. Because the hard part of it for overseas is the cost. The book costs more to mail than it costs to buy. In the States, everything you can sell things like a book is media.
Right,
so
media mail.
Yeah, really, really not expensive to mail them. But so I'm looking at lots of options. But, it's one of these things that when it finally happened, I just sat back and looked at it, and I was so happy that I did this, because I think we're living through a really, really dark time in our history. And I think people need something just to kind of laugh and smile about. And there is nothing angry about that gesture in this book. It's just, to me, when people realize, I go to the NAMM show now over the past years, and people come running up to me giving me the finger going, I'm supposed to do this, aren't I? I'm supposed to, and I go, sure. And I've got a nun in the book, it's like, it's not a big deal. And I was thrilled that my parents are in the book, and it's just really fun. To me, it's really lighthearted, and I can imagine if this is sitting in somebody's living room and somebody comes over the house and kind of looks at that cover and kind of go, what's this? And then if they flip the book over and see the back side of the cover,
Right, because Leland's on the front with just a nice picture of him, but then if you flip it over, you can see his arm follows over the spine and around, and then you get the finger showing. So it's very well designed. And like you said, it is a fun, happy book, just looking at all these pictures and realizing who gives a shit, it's just like, let's stop being so serious about what this is. And that's what this book is. It's just kind of giving everybody the excuse to do exactly what they want to do, which is just flip people off and have fun with it. So it's great. And there's a lot of celebrities in it. There's a lot of musicians. There's a lot of actors.
Actors, yeah.
And then you've got everything from the catering crew to gardeners.
Yeah, the gardeners, the gas company guy, the pilots. I've got a pilot and co-pilot from a flight I was on American Airlines. And I got those guys. And I love the picture from our tour in Europe on our private plane where the pilot and the co-pilot, crawled out of the little kick windows in the cockpit and were facing each other over the plane, flipping each other off and stuff. It's just silly. And I want people to just be able to just get away from the nightmare that we're facing on a daily basis and just kind of get a chuckle out of it. And a lot of people are having fun because we intentionally did not section this book off to where here's the celebrities and then here's so-and-so. And this is because to me, in my heart, this is a book about humanity. And to me, everybody is a celebrity in their own way. I mean, my veterinarian's in there, my dentist is in there, the hygienist is in there. Everybody has their own thing. And I like the idea of people flipping through and kind of going, I wonder who, and that's Jay Leno, kind of thing. And, seeing the interspersement with it and also trying to guess who a lot of the people are. I get people writing to me going, who's the person on this page that's opposite Allie Willis or something like that? Because Art Garfunkel's in the book, and it's hard to recognize Art. Sean Penn is in there, and you got to kind of look at it. And so it's also a little voyage of discovery too.
I loved it when you first open it and you get those pictures, and you have to laugh.
Starting with the babies.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so perfect. And I think it's really important too, like in this day and age, because we're all wearing masks. You can't see people's expressions.
Yeah.
The facial expressions, which say so much. So, when you're flipping off, it takes on a personality of its own.
Yeah.
Definition of its own. And you can tell in those which are ones that are like really flipping you off. And then others that are like, this just feels so good.
Yeah. They've been empowered. I mean, it's really funny. I mean, I was sitting in LAX and this couple came up to me and they were from Russia, and she was a bass player and he was a drummer, and they recognized me and they said, we talked for a while, and they said, can we get a picture with you? And I said, well, absolutely. And after we took the picture, I said, now, and as soon as I went like this to them, gave them the finger, they said, oh, and they jumped on it so fast. They were so excited to do it. And I would say out of the 12,000 pictures I've got, and that's 12,000 pictures, but in some of those pictures, I've got hundreds of people in a picture too. So that's strictly picture count, but there's a lot of multiples of people. So there might be 25,000, 30,000 people in the ultimately in all the pictures.
Wow.
But I've probably had maybe 15 people say no. And I would say, really? And they go, well, it's against my religion. I look at them, I go, that's why I'm an atheist. I mean, if you can find a religion that frowns upon giving the finger, you're really barking up the wrong tree. And one of them came back to me later after realizing that I had all these, it was a bass player, and then realizing I had all these bass players in the book. They came back and they said, oh, I've changed my mind. And I said, I did too. You're not in the book. And I refused to take their picture at that point.
Yeah.
Who's your most prized possession picture in this book?
I would really have to say, honestly, if you go to the back page of the book, of not the very last page, I think, is the picture from the rock walk at the Guitar Center. But the page before that, I'm trying to remember. On the left is Ted Lynn.
Yes,
who's my music teacher in junior high school, who brought me to bass and changed my life. And we hooked up many years later, and I got this picture of him. I spent time with him, and then he passed away from cancer. And I'm so thrilled I hooked up with him again and could really sit and talk to him about how much he meant to me in my life. I mean, he was probably one of the most pivotal people in my life. And it's so weird, time goes on in your life and all that. It was still almost impossible to call him Ted. He was still Mr. Lynn. Those teachers, man, you have a respect for them, and you get around them and you're still 14 years old or whatever, It's hard to realize. But it was really great. And his partner, his name is Moss, is a ceramicist, and he's in the book too, holding a piece of ceramics. So that's great. And when we did the picture opposite my parents, I love having my folks in a book. It's great. But the opposite picture of that is Merle Haggard and Christofferson and Willie Nelson.
Yes.
And we were doing the Grammys. And I had worked with all of them individually, but to have the three of them together was really pretty great.
Even if they weren't giving you the finger, that was a great photo.
Oh, the hang is so incredible with those guys, and they're all really close friends, and but having them together was great. But it's just one of these things. I think the hardest part for me when I'm looking at the book is there's a lot of people who have passed in the book. And so it's almost like I could have done a memoriam section and had a pretty big, thick section of the book with that, because it breaks my heart, but I'm also so thrilled that I got to get a picture with them and then put them in this book, because we had talked about this, maybe someday doing a book and all that, and the fact that they're in it, and it's an emotional journey for me too. It's not all just kind of goofy. There's a deep side for me personally in this, and almost every picture conjures up memories of places and people, and for me, it that transcends to another level. Wow, I got deep. Got deep.
That's good.
That's good. I was wondering about a couple of the pictures.
Sure.
I love the picture of Slash, because he's wearing that iconic Johnny Cash shirt where he's flipping off Johnny Cash. Off. That was perfect.
Yeah, the thing with that one was people kept saying, "Oh, you're going to use that picture." And Jim Marshall took that picture, and it's an iconic photograph of Johnny Cash giving the finger. And when I was working with Slash, I looked down and I went, "Oh, this couldn't be better." Just to be able to look like a double header.
I love that. The can of Spam. That
was up at City Walk at Universal. I was up doing a gig up there, and we had time to kill after our sound check. And I'm walking around. There's this store selling all kinds of Spam stuff, and this poor person's out in this outfit in the front of the place dressed like a can of Spam, and I said, "You gotta flip me off," and they went, "Absolutely." So they did. And the thing that's fun on the background of that page, it's all Spam on it. Blue said, "Look, let's put Spam on this whole page and dedicate it."
So I learned other ways of flipping off that I didn't see anybody else do.
Well, the thing was, when I got Jack Black, and he's in there, he said, "You want balls or no balls?"
Hey, what's the one with Crosby? I couldn't quite figure out what.
Yeah, he does kind of a. I don't know if it's like the Vulcan finger or something like that. It's weird. And then a bunch of the guys like James Taylor, they do that finger rather than that finger. But the thing to me is, there's about a half a dozen incarnations of how you can give the finger. Faces are infinite. And the thing I look at when I'm looking through the book is the faces, because you've opened up something to people when they're doing this. That's not part of their normal routine. And so you get there's one in there, there's this blonde who's like going like this. And that's Marilyn Martin, who sang Separate Lives with Phil Collins. And she was at one of our gigs, and I said, "Come on." But she was so embarrassed that, and then you get the people that are uber aggressive, and they're like just completely in your face. And one of the things I also loved was when I could find people who had like arthritis. So, you would get kind of a deformed hand. There's one picture, and there's a guy that looks like he's giving the peace sign. And I kept saying, no, come on. And he keeps going like this. And he said, "I am." And I finally realized he was missing that finger.
Oh, wow.
This was he was in a band that opened for James and Carol when we played New Zealand. And I looked suddenly and I saw there was a knuckle. So he was going like that, but there was no finger. And so, it's just, there's so many things. There was a guy, I think it's in there, who was a security guard at Madison Square Garden. And his right arm ceased to develop past the elbow. It was just a deformity, but there was a nub of what looked like a finger coming out of this. So he's kind of looking at me like this, and there's this little tiny nub, and it's like this deformed arm with a tiny bit of a finger sticking out. So as soon as I see that, man, I'm creaming. I'm so excited.
Well, there was one guy in jeans, and he's bending over, and it was like I'd never seen that before, with the bird like coming out of his butt.
Yeah.
It was like, that was perfect.
Yeah, I remember that moment too.
So you got Jack Nicholson in there?
Yeah.
Barry Manilow kind of was almost too polite. He didn't want to.
Well, that's why there's two pictures of Barry in there, because there's another picture of him in dark wraparound sunglasses going, okay. He looks like a child molester in it, because I was doing an album with him, and he gives me this kind of a real coy little, I said, "You can do better than that." And he puts on these sunglasses and does this. So in the book, there's two Barrys. Okay. There's like the Jekyll and Hyde in there. And Nicholson, we were doing a tribute to Carole King at the Dolby Theater, and Jack was there, and he was hanging out because he's been around a lot of gigs over the years. He's a real muso freak, and he was sitting there, and I just, after we finished our sound check, I said, "Come on, Jack, flip me off." And then he did like this upside down one. And when we were just on Phil Collins's last tour, like Jane Seymour came to the gig, and so I got her in there, and we had done a cruise, and Jeremy Irons was on that, and Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller, and Lawrence Fishburne. So the worst that happens is somebody would say no, but like I said, almost everybody is so excited. And the thing is, the other 6,000 to 7,000 pictures I didn't use are just like these. I mean, it's not like I culled out crappy ones to get to the good ones. There's some absolutely great ones that I couldn't do a book that big. I mean, it was like just at a certain point we had to draw the line.
Well, this is kind of coffee table size anyway.
Yeah, it's 6 pounds. I mean, it's a big, heavy book.
It's like 1.5 inches thick, and it's wide and tall, and that way you get the brilliantness of every photo in your face.
You're handling all the distribution of it too, right? So you're getting pallets of these books, and then you're mailing them out.
Yeah,
it's got to be insane.
It's arduous. Especially the first blast when I put up the website, and I ended up with these mountains of orders, and I was offering the book either unsigned or signed, and it was like a little bit more to get the signed version. Well, to do the signed version, these things come in each thing is a box with 5 books in it, and each book is in a box that you got them in. So there's 5 of those in each one. Then I would have to open those up, and all of the books were shrink wrapped when they were made. So then I have to cut all that off, sign the book, repack the book, and then take it to the post office. And also with the advent, because people kept saying, "Oh, I know people that would come over and help you with this." COVID. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to, do this work is close proximity. If somebody was there to help, like unpack the book and strip off the shrink wrap, hand it to me, and then I signed it, and then they packed it. I mean, it would have been nice to have had a little assembly line going, but there isn't one thing about this book that's worth anybody being in danger. So I really had to take it all on myself. The fortunate thing is at the post office, which is about 5 minutes from my house, I just hit a buzzer when I go to the back, and they open it up, and I go to a loading dock so I could unload boxes.
Well, they're still heavy.
Oh, it's heavy. I mean, I'm probably in some of the best shape I've been in. I've humped probably several tons of books myself at this point. And but to me, it's kind of like I keep thinking about doing a T-shirt that says "I was never meant for retail." Because I'm sitting here having to keep track of sales tax and all this shit. I just want to be on the road playing. My life is in a kind of a bizarre place at this point. But I've so thoroughly enjoyed it, and the thing that's great is people are sending me pictures from all over the world, from Japan, from Scandinavia, of the book in their house, and to me, it's so much fun just to see people responding, and nobody said, because a couple of people I think thought it was going to be an autobiography, and they're real curious about my career, and they said they would write and say, "Can hardly wait to read it." I said, "Not much reading. This is a picture book." But nobody's returned it saying, this isn't what I wanted, take it back kind of thing.
Well, you talk about writing a book, and, I'm just amazed, like when you go to your YouTube channel, you do something every day.
Yeah.
And just the recollection that you have of every little thing. Like last night I was watching one, I think it was on Sammy Hagar doing Dock of the Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you found like the immediate family doing that song. And it was like, you could just tell that you were just getting into it. And it was like, my God, this version is fantastic. Too bad we haven't had that yet released, but maybe in the future with immediate family getting that.
We'll see. I'm kind of, I've been asked for years to do a book, but I'm kind of looking at this YouTube channel as kind of a living version of a book, because the things to me that are interesting about my career, I've seen so many books that people have written, and they're interesting, but I wouldn't be writing about my growing up and my life and all that. To me, the thing that people connect with is the thing I've done for my career, which is all the records I've played on and the people I've worked with and all that. So to have it be kind of a living, breathing thing on YouTube, and I've had a few people say to me, you should put this all on a CD, DVD, and see if the Library of Congress would want it, just to put in their archives. And we do a gig every year called We Write the Songs for ASCAP, and we do that at the Library of Congress. And this past year, of course, was canceled. But if it happens again, I'm pretty good friends with the people there after doing this for so many years. And I'm going to hit them up and say, would this be of any interest to you? I mean, you don't, just to have a place for it to be a repository for all of this stuff. But that has been, during the course of this past year with the pandemic, the two things that have been really astounding to me is being able to do this book and doing this YouTube channel, which I've got about 425 or something videos up on that now. I haven't missed one day since March. And it's been fascinating to kind of go down this kind of journey and start listening and playing along with songs I did 50 years ago and hadn't heard since. So it's been very cathartic on a lot of levels. So I feel almost guilty on a certain level that I've had such a positive year during such an incredibly horrid year. It's one of those things you're almost embarrassed by saying, yeah, it's been really great. When I've had friends, a number of friends have died, and other friends, my brother-in-law just got out of the hospital. He's got COVID and pneumonia, and he just got home, and he's doing better now.
Good.
But there's so many people suffering that you kind of don't want to say, well, I've been doing okay. Because I haven't really. I mean, I miss working. I miss studio work. I miss touring. There's a huge amount of my life that if I really wallow in what I've lost, it can be really depressing. But I'm not that kind of person by nature. And I really looked at this as soon as everything disappeared. I kind of just started to think, what can I do? And these two things just reared their heads, and I just went for it. And plus the immediate families, we're still getting ready to release our next EP. And there's a documentary.
The movie, yeah.
The movie by Denny Tedesco is being made, and that's still going on. And we have a finished album that was supposed to be out in November, but now it'll probably be out in summer or something like that. So there's a lot of positive things going on. Plus, my yards never look so good.
You've even put videos of that up.
Yeah, well, I did put a few of those up because that's, if I put a video up of my yard or my dogs, that's the only thing I can monetize. Everything else is copyright protected. So, I've worked my ass off all year, and I can't make any money at any of it. But that wasn't my motivation, and I'm not concerned about that. The pleasure I'm getting and the community that evolved out of this YouTube channel is really pretty amazing to me. And I do 2 live streams a month on it. And the one we did this past Tuesday was 2.5 hours of me just sitting and talking to people on the chat window. And but the thing I enjoy so much at this point is, like 15 minutes before I start the thing up, the chat window's open, and I'm looking at all these people that have become friends. And they're, like somebody's writing from New Zealand, talking to somebody in Finland, about, how's the family? And it's become this really beautiful family unto itself during a period where people can't get together. This is a place where they've all gotten together and really created this community. And from my standpoint, it's made the entire thing worthwhile, is to see this happen. It's been
you're the conduit. I mean, you're what brought them all together.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll just sit there for a while and just watch them talk, and I don't want to disturb them because they're in a groove. So it's cool. I mean, it's really cool. But the book has been profoundly educational for me, just to see. The idea of making something is one thing. The idea of actually then dealing with it, marketing it, and all that. And that's why I'm so appreciative of being able to do a show like this with you guys, and and just to get the info out there. And we're looking, like I said, at fulfillment centers and things where I can actually, send out some pallets of books rather than dealing with boxes of books. Really, send out a half a ton of books to somebody, someplace that can do all the distribution and marketing and stuff like that.
Like Amazon.
Well, this company in Colorado, apparently the book is on Amazon. They put it up for themselves. I wasn't going to go that route myself, but at this point, I just want to get it out there. I want people to have fun with it, and I think I've broken even at this point on my investment. So whatever I do after this is fine. I'm not looking at it. I don't feel the same pressure I was feeling when I looked at how much I had to lay out on delivery of the books. So now at this point, I can just kind of kick back and look at this long term. I mean, I can spend the next year or two selling books, and it's fine with me.
In the pandemic year too, it's like I'm sure you had in-stores set up where you were going to sign them, and that just made everything a lot more difficult. Yeah.
I mean, we were going to do a thing here in LA at LA Vintage Gear. We were all set up to do a big thing there. And I delivered they've still got them sitting in their warehouse, a mountain of books. And we had like cutouts all ready for, and when we were going to do it was when one of the big lockdowns was about to happen. And Cliff, who owns it, we just looked at each other and said, there isn't one life worth putting in danger to do this. So we're still planning on doing it when the time's right. And Vroman's Books here in Pasadena is a wonderful bookstore, and I'd love to talk to them about doing a signing there. But right now, there's like a double-edged sword with this. On the one hand, you really can't do any of the in-store promotion or go out and do that. And on the other hand, money's really tight. So finding people that really want to spend, $60 to $80 either for unsigned or signed is a lot of money when you're looking at your bills and you're not working and things like that. So there isn't that much frivolous money to do that. So, I mean, I figure if I get through this and things get better, it can only get better at that point.
What a great attitude. I love that.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here.
And we want to read a quick review by Eisenhalt. Many, many thanks to Rock and Roll Confessional for the consistently insightful and fun looks behind the scenes of the music industry. Anyone who loves music is going to find a treasure trove of stories from some of these truly legendary figures. Looking forward to the next episode. Thank you, Eisenhalt.
That was very nice. Our podcast relies solely on support from our listeners. We get no other moolah. So we're asking for your help as we do every week. All it takes is a very small pledge to help keep us going. That's right, as little as $1 a month. That's $12 a year. Please support us by going to Patreon, and you can search for us, Rock and Roll Confessional, when you're in Patreon, or just go to the support tab on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks. Reads.
Well, we get this trivia question here. It's going to be an interesting one because Leland, you kind of assume he's from Southern California, don't you?
I mean, from everything I read, yes.
But where was Lee born? Was he born in Southern California? Was he born in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Was he born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Or was he born in Taiwan?
Or born in a hospital?
I don't know if he was born in a hospital or not. That's a trivia question.
All right. Think about that. We'll give you the answer when we get back. Now it's time for our second half of our interview with Leland Sklar. Let's talk music.
Yeah, you got this bass guitar that I've always admired that's got signatures from all these different musicians. It's like, do you still have, he's got it there.
Sitting right here.
Is that Frankenstein?
That's Frankenstein. This thing is just absolutely covered. And this was never actually a real instrument. This was pieces. I call it Frankenstein because back around 1972 or so, I somehow ended up getting this neck. And it was a precision bass neck. And I'm not a fan of the profile of a Fender precision bass. So my bass of preference in these is a jazz bass. So I went. There was a watering hole here in town, Westwood Music down in Westwood, Fred Wallace. And it was like really the watering hole. Like anytime you went in there, you'd see Jackson Brown or, people were just hanging out there. It was really a great hang. And the guy who did all the repair work there was named John Carruthers. And when I got this neck, I started thinking, what could I ever do with this thing? Well, there was a company out here. I think they were out near like where Raging Waters is or something. I forget.
San Dimas area?
Yeah, San Dimas area, I think. Called Charvel. And Charvel used to make replacement parts for instruments. And so I went out there and there was a big stack of these bodies sitting there. And originally this would have been a precision based body. And there were all these older bodies. And so what I did was I got a coat hanger and I just hung each one from a piece of wire and just went and knocked on them. And this one just had a resonance to it that I thought this could be a really good instrument. Now, people are hearing this, so I'm doing some description here. But there's a plate in the middle of the body. Underneath this plate would have been where a precision-based pickups would have been. But we ended up putting 2 sets of precision pickups on this where jazz pickups would have gone, but we reversed their position, where the half of the pickup under the E and the A string is closer to the bridge rather than closer to the neck. These would have been flipped on a standard. And, and it's one of these things. I ended up putting mandolin frets on it because we had to strip the neck to do the reshaping. And when I was walking around the shop, I saw this wire hanging on the wall and I asked John, what's that? And he said, it's mandolin wire. I said, let's use that. And he said, that'll never work. It's too small. I said, let's just try it. And I've put it on every bass I've had since then. It's just the most luxurious neck to play. But when the Dodgers won the World Series in, I think, 81, we went in the studio with the Big Blue Wrecking Crew and cut Queen's We Are the Champions with them. And they were all like hammered and just out of their minds. But this bass it was still just a wood body on it, nothing. And they started signing baseballs for us, the band. And I said, well, that's cool, but sign my bass. And next thing I know, I got the guys on Jerry Royce and Steve Yeager and Rick Monday and all these guys were there. And so they signed the bass. And then we hit the road with James Taylor, and we were at a gig in Indianapolis, I think. We were playing the Tennis Center there, and Rocky Blyer and Lynn Swan were there because it was just before it was like Olympic training was going on. There was a swimming center there, and they were backstage, and they looked at the bass and said, "Oh, baseball players are pussies. You need some football players on here." So I've got Lynn Swan is right here.
Wow.
Rocky Blyer's right there. The Dodgers all got worn off. I never clear coated this bass because it was really my main instrument. And there was always a chance that putting a coating on it could have changed the sound of it a little bit. And then over the years, it's like the fingers. It's one of these things that you get a few on there and the next thing you know, I've got George Lucas signed it and wrote, "May the Force be with you." And right next to that, Peter Max made a little Saturn next to George's thing. And I've got like Clapton and all these people have signed it. So it's a lot of fun. But I have Yamaha built me a kind of their version of this for me. It was a BB series bass. And it was black. And so I took metallic markers with that gold and silver. And on that one, I did a lot of funny gigs. So I've got Debbie Reynolds and Milton Berle, Bob Hope, Mel Torme, Dick Van Dyke, all these people. And as soon as that thing got covered, we took it apart and clear coated the body so that they're all protected on it. Yeah. It's got about as many. But I've got on this one, I've got Andy Griffith is on it. I did 2 albums with Andy Griffith.
Yeah. Right.
The best thing with Andy was we're in the studio, and this was after Matlock and that whole period. And he still had this thick white hair. And we're sitting there, and he looks and he goes, "Who would have thought I'd have all this hair and Opie'd be bald?" It's like one of those memories where you just go, thank you for putting me here right now.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer studio or do you prefer touring?
I think if I had to make a choice, I would be on the road. I'd be touring. There's a side to it that's difficult in terms of being away from family and home, but there's that immediacy of an audience that's just unbeatable. But I feel very fortunate that I've never had to make that call, that I've been able to mix my years up really well between studio work and touring, because I really like both processes.
Yeah, with all the work you do, it's amazing that you haven't had to make that choice because other than the last year, you're constantly working.
Yeah, and this year was full. I mean, I had a whole year's worth of work that just, as the old saying goes, it went away like a fart in a hurricane. It was just, one day it was there. And some of it, there's still, I had one thing I was supposed to do in May that got moved to November, that got moved to February of this year, and now it's March of next year. It was a big, huge gig in Switzerland, and they said it's too big a gig to try to err on the side of let's get it done now, because odds are it would not be happening. So it's easier for them to look a year away and say let's just do that and hope for the best at that point.
I keep wondering how all these bands that have postponed their tours, like when everything opens, are we going to have just giant plethora of concerts? And how are people even going to afford it? There could be major concerts every single night when we're done here of all the tours that, have postponed.
It's really hard to know. With the immediate family, we've got stuff in the book for late fall. And everything is predicated on cancellation with no penalties. But we wanted to be on the books for things rather than suddenly it opens up and you're at the end of the line because you haven't been proactive in getting yourself booked to these gigs. And they're like, theater size, big club kind of gigs. It's not like, I know Genesis was getting ready to go out and they're, they did their rehearsals and they're all set to go, but everything's in a warehouse waiting. And whenever it finally opens up, then they'll get together for a week and just bone back up on what they need to do and then hit the road. But it was so thoughtful because I talked to Tony Smith, Phil Collins' manager and Genesis' manager. And he said, look, we were already holding the rehearsal place. And he said, if nothing else, the crew just got 6 weeks of work. Because those are the guys that are hurting, So exactly. they were able to do all the rehearsals. And they had COVID police there. They said in the 6 weeks, there wasn't one case of it because there was constant testing and isolation and everybody had masks and doing the right thing. And there was no problem with it. But I thought that's the kind of organization they are. It's really thoughtful where they thought, man, it's the crew guys live week to week. It's like the band. They don't have to ever work again. They're all incredibly wealthy.
Oh, sure.
But the bread and butter, of the crew, those guys, man, 6 weeks of work meant a great deal to them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I got to ask you, you've been a part of so many wonderful records and recordings and, so many great live shows. Do you still get that tingling of, oh my God, like in the studio, or how special is this? Do you still get that?
Every time.
I love hearing that. Oh,
I remember when I started with James Taylor, we played the Troubadour, was our first gig. And I think these guys were at the gig and they hired me and Russ actually to do this record before I had recorded with James. And it was Brian Hyland and Del Shannon was producing him.
Wow. Yeah.
And I can still remember the feeling of walking into a studio for the first time with that. And I still feel that way when I walk into a studio. I find it the most kind of anticipatory atmosphere because most of the times you don't know what you're getting into when you go to work. I'm not sent anything in advance. I don't know who the artist is, or it might be a name that I've never heard. And so you walk in and you're kind of thinking to yourself, God, I just hope I don't suck today, kind of thing. But I find it just to be the most remarkable, I hate calling it an industry because there is a side to it that is an industry and that is business that can be really disturbing and disappointing. But when it comes to the creative process and the blessing I've had of the musicians and the artists and the engineers and producers that I've worked with, I wouldn't give that up for anything. It's been just great. And when you're playing gigs, and I don't care, like with Phil, we just finished this tour, and a lot of the gigs were stadiums, and we were looking at 70, 80,000 people a night. I get the exact same feeling from that stage as I do when I work with Judith Owen and we're playing a little pub in the north of England for 50 people. It's that thing that these juices start flowing that are just pretty magical.
When you go into a studio, what is your responsibility? Are you helping not write the song, but are you helping musically put it together? Or are you handed sheet music and say, just play this? Or what is your role when you go in there to record for somebody you don't even know who you're recording for at the time?
It's anything and everything. First off, it's all, number one, predicated on individual songs. Like everything you're doing, you might go in there to do 8 songs, but you're doing 8 individual experiences because each song is going to be different demands on you in terms of feel and style, instrumentation and all that. But there's times where I show up and there's nothing for me. There's maybe the artist is a guitar player and they're just going to sit and play guitar and show you the song, and you kind of sketch out a little roadmap for yourself, and then you start creating your parts. There's other times where you show up and everything has been there's been pre-production and everything's written out exactly how they want it, and then you become a conduit to just interpret what they have. And a lot of times they'll say, use that chart, but bring yourself too. They want you to bring the personality to it. But it can be an entire gamut of things. I mean, that's the thing that I think has kept it so interesting is every day is unique. You're not going to a job where you're doing the same repetitive thing every day. Every day I'm joining a new band when I'm in the studio, and you become a part of that. And there are a lot of times where they'll have a song and it's kind of sketched out, but maybe it needs a bridge or they don't have an intro, and the band ends up doing it non-credited for it, but you end up becoming very involved in the actual construction of the songs. And from my standpoint, another aspect of my job that I've always felt comfortable with is I sort of feel like a cheerleader on dates where it can get really serious, and some guys are really, they're not downers, but they're dour. You know, you get in there and they're just doing their playing, and then they're not connected. And I always think it's really great just to be, cracking jokes and messing around. And, when the red light comes on, you're dead serious about what you're doing. But before that, just having fun in there. I mean, you're so blessed to be making music. There's enough crappy jobs in the world that anybody could have that, to be able to go do something for your vocation that would have been your avocation had it not happened. You'd still be playing and doing clubs and, it's really great. We still get calls. I had a friend who said, I got a friend who lives in Pacific Palisades and he's like turning 60. Would you and some of the guys be willing to come and play for his birthday party? And it was like 30 people in the guy's basement. And we got like Mike Finnegan and Vinnie Colaiuta and myself. And this is and nobody had really a clue really exactly that they were getting a band that was like on the road with people like Sting and Phil Collins and all these people. And we had a ball. We just did all kind of top 40 stuff and just did a bunch of old Motown and soul stuff. And because you're playing. You're hanging with your friends and you're playing. You can't ask for much more than that.
Going back to the teacher, I found that really interesting because you were pianist, right?
Yeah.
And he said bass. And you didn't have any hesitation on that. You said, okay.
Well, what happened was when I was a little kid, my parents used to watch the Liberace TV show. And I watched it with them. And I just found it mesmerizing. He's sitting there in his tails and his candelabra, and his brother George would come out and play violin. And we had a baby grand piano in the house. And nobody was like a pianist in the house, but it was a family piano. And I started plonking around on it and took to it immediately. And my parents recognized it and found a teacher. And by the time I was, I think, 8, I had won some award, a big award from the Hollywood Bowl Association about like accomplished young pianists, and met Eugene Normandy from the Philadelphia Orchestra. But I was all classical training. I mean, as far away from classical as I got would be maybe Gershwin. But by the time I was 12, I was going into junior high school. And I was, at that point, kind of really burned out. I'd been under a lot of pressure for a lot of years because I did have an affinity. So I was really pushed real hard by teachers that really I think were living out maybe their lack of success by having this kid that they could, show off. So I went in assuming I would, when I walked into the first day of music class in the orchestra, I figured I'd be the piano player. And Mr. Lynn, he said, there's a lot of kids that are playing piano in this room right now, but we need a bass player. And I really wasn't sure what he was talking about. And he went into the back room and brought out this old K upright and handed it to me and showed me how to hold it. And I hit one note on that and felt that vibration run through the body. And I looked at him and I said, sold. I said, let's do it. And so he gave me rudimentary lessons. And our junior high school dance band, we ended up cutting a record like 4 months after I picked up the bass, and we were doing things like Autumn Leaves and all this. And I've still got the record here. It's a 78, acetate. And it's really funny to hear this. But I welcomed, I think I was so burned out with piano at that point that the bass really became all consuming to me. And then I went through a whole bunch of things with that because I was still playing classical and then with jazz. And it really wasn't until the Beatles came along, like for so many other players, that I suddenly twisted my head around and I went, In Hollywood where the Musicians Union, I don't think it's there anymore. I think they got rid of the building and moved. But on Vine Street, there's a place across the street that was called Stein on Vine. And it's a big, huge music store that this guy Stein, originally it was part of the Union building. And my dad took me there when I was probably about 14, maybe 14 and a half, and bought me a melody bass and a St. George amp. So I could go electric at that point. And that became really the next quantum change for me. Because every gig I had been doing before that, they would let me take the upright bass home and go to these gigs. And now, you're beating yourself up without mics or anything like that. The guitar player has a little amp and the drummer, and you're up there bleeding because you're playing so hard. So when I got electric, it was like, man, opened a whole new world. But ultimately, I never thought I'd have a gig be working in the music business. That wasn't the direction I was headed in. And just a weird set of circumstances happened, and the perfect storm hit. And I was in the middle of it when it happened, and it changed my life forever.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Changed all of ours, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great music.
We have what we call the bonus round, where we're going to just throw some fast and fun questions at you. If you're ready.
Well, at least fast.
Right. The answers don't have to be fast. The questions will be fast.
I'm just talking about fun.
What was your favorite concert you attended or played at?
I think that my greatest memory of a concert was my parents used to take me and my sister every summer to Gershwin night at the Hollywood Bowl. And at one of the times we were there, they were right in the middle of Concerto in F. And the orchestra stopped playing, and they all walked up to the Presidium, and where the pool, they used to have a reflecting pool at the Hollywood Bowl in front of the stage. There was this thing. And they stopped, and everybody looked up, and Sputnik flew over. And it was the first satellite. And so nobody had ever seen anything in space before. And all of a sudden, we're all standing there, and they shut the lights off at the bowl, and you saw this little light go across the horizon line. And when that ended, the orchestra went and sat down and continued. But they weren't going to miss this opportunity, and I'll never forget that. And the other really great concert I saw is my parents took me to the Hollywood Palladium to see the George Shearing Quintet with the Hi-Lo's singing. And I just sat there going, this is unbelievable.
What's your favorite performance playing? I mean, no, that's hard to answer. Because,
it's real hard. I mean, let me think for just a second here. There's so many. I'll tell you, one of my most consistent great feelings about gigs is with Phil Collins. And it's when we play In the Air Tonight. And the anticipation, as soon as the audience, because like Brad Cole would do like this kind of an extemporaneous beginning to the song, and people really didn't know where it was going. And all of a sudden you hear that. As soon as that sequence hit, the crowd would just go crazy. And then they sit there anticipating, waiting and waiting and waiting for the big drum fill. And all of a sudden they're all standing up and playing air drums and stuff. Every night, man, get goosebumps from that. It's one of those moments. It's not a complicated song by any means, but there is an emotional thing that is connected with people on that. But there's so many. I mean, it's like I'm always blown away, like if I play like Carnegie Hall. And you walk in, and just the weight of history of who's been on that stage. And you kind of sit there, man, I better keep my game high here because there's a lot of mojo on this stage. But, to me, every time you walk out in any, like I said earlier, in any venue and there's an audience, you make it a great show. You connect with them, and I like the idea that I have a job where somebody could have had just the shittiest day of their lives, and then they come, and for a couple of hours they're like it's behind them, and they're just enjoying themselves. They may have to face it when they leave, but for that bit of time, I did a video on my YouTube channel early on where I tell a story about a family that I met in Scotland that were heading to Ireland, and it's still one of the most profound experiences of my life, hooking up with this family. And this happened in 1990, and we're still friends. And it revolved around their little boy named David, and David's now in his 30s. But the thing that it ended up about that, I mean, it was really insane, and it's way too long a story here. But if anybody ever goes to my YouTube channel and goes and does some forensic on it, and go back to the early videos, there's one about this family. And it's pretty astounding, and it's still one of the deepest experiences I've ever had on tour with them.
If you were making a rock and roll documentary, what subject would it be on? Or if you were making a documentary, what subject would it be on?
Oh, God. I've never really seen anybody do a documentary about the history of recording studios. I mean, everybody knows about certain, Sun and Stax Records and all. There's never been a compilation that really talks about Gold Star and all these great rooms that no longer exist. But I'm sure there's all kinds of archival pictures and footage. That would be really kind of interesting to see the development of. You could go through the studios and talk about the development of studios and technology and the gear and all that from direct to disc, up to digital world, and that might be a fun project to do.
That's excellent. Since you traveled a lot, what is your favorite city to go to? Because you weren't the type of guy who was drinking and stuff like that. You wanted to go explore the city.
Yeah.
What was, like some of your favorite places?
Well, I mean, certainly, some of the major places like London and Paris and Rome, when you get to those places. And it certainly is easiest when you're like in London or something, just because you don't have language issues where a lot of places still. But there's been so many. I mean, I think one of the greatest blessings of this job has been the travel aspect, where I've been places I would have never gotten to had I been a civilian, kind of situation. I still, when I was out with Toto, one of our legs started in Bodø, Norway, which is 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Wow. And we bussed the whole west coast of Norway, and the bus went on to the big ferries, and we'd be going through the fjords, and it was so beautiful and so stunning. I just absolutely loved it. But I've loved traveling to all the weird little places that we've gone through. And some of the tours I've been on have been small tours, and you end up hitting these little areas that the big tours never get to. And I think the thing that was great on the 2004 tour with Phil, where the Finger all started, was the essence of that tour was he wanted to go places he had never played. So we were like in Latvia and Estonia. We played the Middle East, and we played in Israel, and then went right to Lebanon and played there, and had just amazing experience in all these places because the expectation was never that an artist as big as Phil would ever come to these places, and the audiences were absolutely incredible. And I kind of look at all that the same way I look at genres when I'm working, where people say, what do you like to play? I really like it all. So when I'm on the road, I can hit some weird little town somewhere and I go, this is really amazing. And the kind of memories you have. I toured for many, many years with an artist named Véronique Sanson, who's like probably the biggest female artist in the history of France. And in the 70s, she was married to Stephen Stills. And she's a force of nature, but I worked with her for from 93 till about 2003. And we'd go and spend like a month a year in France touring with her. But I remember we were in a little tiny village in the middle of France. And she said, I got to order you breakfast. And I said, okay, that's great. And so we're sitting there in this hotel, in their restaurant, and this meal arrives. And there's the most perfect steak I've ever seen on the table. I haven't eaten meat in years, but this was back then. But it was this perfect steak. And I cut into it and I took a bite. I said, this is the best steak I've ever had. And she looked at me and she said, it's a mushroom. And this is the only place in the world where this mushroom grows. It's much more involved than a portobello or any of those. Yeah. This was like a half-inch thick steak, and it tasted exactly. And I looked at her. I said, I would eat this every day if we could. But you spend all those time on the road, and those are the kind of memories you end up with. Like when bands are on tour, you hit a town, and most everybody kind of remembers a restaurant they dug. They can't remember the venue, but they remember like a rib joint or something really good. So.
Yeah.
How many gold records do you have?
I have no idea. In the early days, they used to send them to us, and then they got really weary of that. So we would get a letter that would say, the album's been certified gold or platinum. Send $175 and mail you one. Yet They would give one to the caterers or the hairdresser or something. So, I've got a lot of them here, but they don't represent the stuff I've played on.
What would you say? I mean, you've had a blessed life.
Yeah.
What would you say to your 19-year-old self?
This is one of the things that has always bothered me in my career, that if I could go back and do it again, I would do. And that is from the very first Brian Hyland, Del Shannon record, I would have had a camera with me and taken a picture of the studio, the artist, the producer, the engineer, and the other musicians, and just document every session. I think that would have been something that I would cherish at this point in my life, to be able to look back in pictures and see, because so much studios are gone, people are gone. Right. It's so much is behind us. And to actually have a visual history of it would have been great. Other than that, the only thing, I could say, God, I wish I would have honed writing skills more, because that's where the dough is in this business. And I've never really been a writer. I love helping out with arranging, but when you start off with people like James Taylor and Jackson Browne and all these people, you're self-defeatist. Goes into full glory. That would have been nice, but I really can't complain. I've been so fortunate in this business, and to at this point to be almost 74 and still busy is, to me,
and healthy and
healthy.
And the brain is great. So
it helped not to do drugs and drink. I mean, I was the designated driver when I was 15. With bands I was in, making sure everybody got home okay. But that's like, I'm a control freak. When it comes to that, and I'm kind of ADHD and all those different, letters,
What is the craziest Spinal Tap moment that you've had in your career?
God, I wish I had some of those Spinal Tap moments. It's so good. There have been times where we've been in buildings and get lost in the buildings and can't find. I had that. Actually, I was panic stricken at one point. We were playing. I think it must have been the Pond out in Anaheim with Phil Collins, and we finished our sound check and all that. And I just wanted to wander the building and see what it was all about, and ended up on some way upper floor, and went into a room just to check it out. And when I went to get out of the room, I turned that doorknob, and it came off in my hand. Nobody knew I was up there. There was no phone or anything like that. And I spent probably 40 minutes banging chairs against the door until a janitor, like down a hall, heard it and came and opened the door. But I might have still been there. And that was years ago. But that was kind of as close to a Spinal Tap moment. But I'm profoundly anal about prep and all that stuff. So there's usually... I've seen Spinal Tap moments around me with some people that don't take it quite the same as I do, but I'm pretty anal about being prepared and having my proverbial shit together when we're out there. So I haven't had too many weird things. I mean, we've had weird stuff happen, bus accidents, plane crashes, and all that kind of stuff, but that's not Spinal Tap as much as, being locked in a giant clear plastic thing and can't get out of it. Harry, I mean, when I work with Judith Owen, she's married to Harry Shearer.
Right.
I spent a lot of time around Spinal Tap mentality.
Did you play at the Derek Smalls show at the Wiltern?
No, because he played bass.
Oh, duh.
I was at the show. I mean, I went there to watch the show. I thought, Harry's a really dear friend, and he's a good bass player. So, for him, it was all that. But I toured with him when he did an album called The End of the Bushmen, and it was about the end of the Bush administration. And we did a bunch of gigs with that. And that's actually how I ended up meeting his wife, because and Judith came out and sat down at the piano and twisted my head completely around. I went, "Are you fucking kidding me?" She's so good. And we connected immediately. We've been working together ever since. I just worked for her today. She's down at their place in New Orleans mixing the new album. And there was a couple of songs that she just sent me, and I put bass on last night and this morning. And
beautiful.
But it's a trip. But yeah, and then every year we would do their Christmas show at the
Largo. Yeah, I saw it, I think 3 years ago. I was there.
It's fun. That's really just one goofy evening, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can't thank you enough. I mean, we, enjoyed you so much when you were on with Immediate Family. Then we found out you have this book, and it's like, we got to talk to him and spend.
Oh, it's time. Great. I so appreciate, being able to hawk my wares.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the personalized book also. That was very kind of you.
Leland, can I ask you, can I put some of the photos from your book on our website?
Oh, sure.
I know I'm supposed to get written permission, reading all the fine details.
This is my written permission. Let me write that for you. You have my permission.
That's perfect.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the book. We really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you and the Immediate Family on tour, and can't wait to hear more from you. So.
Yeah, me too. I'm so anxious.
Yeah, I'm blessed to have you.
Continued good health. Thank you.
Oh, you too. Everybody stay safe right now. Just that's the critical. Yeah. Let's get through this, and as a society, there's still a lot of knuckleheads out there.
Oh, one big team. Come on, people.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Peace out.
Care.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
What a wonderful, amazing, awesome guy. Not only UCW, I'm talking about Lee Sklar there.
He is. He was so kind to let us come up there, grab the books, come back and do the research real quick, which luckily didn't take a long time. There wasn't a lot of reading involved. So for those of you that are ADD like I am, you don't have to worry about the reading part. It's just the fun of looking at this book and seeing all the pretty birds.
Oh, they're so beautiful.
Or fingers. It was great. It was really fun. It's always such a blast to talk to him. And he's such a down-to-earth, just cool guy, and he's got so many stories. I wish we could talk forever. But anyway.
Our special thanks go out to Leland for spending time with us. And also special thanks to Lisa Roy, who helped coordinated the interview, even though she wasn't working on this project with Leland. Oh, thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Autographed and non-autographed copies of Leland's books, Everyone Loves Me, can be purchased via his website. It's LelandSkalarsBeard.com. Leland, Sklar's Sklar with an S, and then beard.com. You can follow him on Facebook at Leland Sklar Official, and also on YouTube. Just search Leland Sklar and you will find all the not millions, but lots.
Yeah,
hundreds of videos. And they're all about 20 to 30 minutes each video, where he really kind of dissects songs and then plays along with them and talks about the history of them and his experience with them. They're really fun, really cool to watch.
He's got so much information. It's like, he didn't do the drugs, and so he's got all that recall.
He remembers everything.
He must have written it down, but it's really fascinating stuff. And we talked in the podcast about him writing a book, but this is also an audio book. If you go to his
YouTube pages, yeah,
it's really good.
Go to our website to check out our show notes. There you can find interesting notes on subjects we talked about in today's show, including links to order Lee's new autograph book and his beard, quote, beard t-shirt. And ladies, you will look smashing in Lee's beard t-shirt. So I highly suggest you get one.
Yes.
We always welcome our new listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Please share our social media with your favorite rock friends. We can always use your help. We are on Facebook and Instagram. All right, Reitz.
All right.
Give us a trivia.
We kind of know Leland as like a Southern California guy because, he started making music here for a long time. He also went to Cal State Northridge. Did you know that?
I only knew that because I did my research.
You're a smart podcaster.
I'm smart when I read things.
Okay, so where was Leland born? Was he born here in Southern California, or was he born in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Was he born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or Taiwan?
Okay, I didn't do all my research, so I don't know. There was so much that led me to think he was born here, because he was always a Southern California boy, I thought. But what is it?
It's actually Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, Mufasa.
And it's like, yeah. It's like, okay, that makes sense in a sense. But I know that because I was going through a list somewhere like where all these favorite musicians are from. And he was like one of the people from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was like, oh, okay. There you go. Eh?
Hey. Yeah. Okay. So my trivia question that I told you off was, whose beard's longer, his beard or Frank Beard from ZZ Top?
And I honestly said, I got to think about that. We have to measure.
Right.
And then,
Frank Beard from ZZ Top is the only one named Beard, but doesn't have a beard. So in ZZ Top, the answer is Leland Sklar's beard is longer than Frank Beard. Not that anyone else is going to care about that. But there you go.
No, sometimes, you just might be thinking late at night. And it's like, I wonder whose beard is longer.
Right.
Do you have those random thoughts come up in your head? I mean, I do.
I have more pointless random thoughts come up in my head. All right, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much.
We'll see you real soon.